in an effort to not fanboy too much, I'm just gonna take one moment and do a little bit of Chris Farley show, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You remember when you put Baltimore Americana on the map? That was
yes, I remember.
Really cool.
I don't remember.
You're watching Beercentrics. We're here at Union Collective with the one and only Cris Jacobs. On my far left, the beer guy. Let's get right into talking about the new record. In your early career, you guys kind of defined yourself with this really genre-defying sound. It really played around with a lot of different things. And the Neville Jacobs record does that too. So can you talk a little bit about the process of you and Ivan getting together and sort of putting that sound together?
I was at Jazz Fest in New Orleans and a little killing some downtime. Went over to the Harrah's Casino, sat down at the poker table.
All right.
And he came and sat down right next to me randomly. And oh yeah, hey, Ivan, Chris, yeah, you know, we knew each other. So we sat and played cards for a few hours, and that sort of like solidified the bond. That was, man, it must have been like 8 years ago or something. And then you know, we kept in touch. Oh, we should do something one day. Yeah, we should do something one day. And then, you know, a couple years later, the stars aligned to do it. It was a real organic kind of connection. You know, we like to play cards. We like to bullshit about sports. Can we cuss on this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. We, you know, he's just a buddy, and you know, happens to be one of the baddest ass musicians on the planet.
Oh.
And so we got together and said, yeah, let's try to do something, see what happens, and sort of started from scratch. Got together in a studio and just started making noise and came up with some songs.
Who makes the first call? Were you texting about the Ravens, or like how does that happen?
As far as making the record, you're talking about?
Yeah, like when you're just like, let's do it. I got studio time booked. Like how does it? Yeah, like how does it come?
Well, the way that came about was that we happened to have a mutual friend who was willing to help coordinate everything for us, organize, and you know, and then he happened to have some downtime in Baltimore after doing some gigs, and so I rented a studio and you know, for 2 days, and let's just see what happens. It was, you know, we'll still be friends if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
You can hear it on the record. It's so like clearly like a natural thing.
Yeah, like literally I was just sitting down with the guitar, he was at the piano. I started noodling on something on the guitar. Oh, that's cool, what's that? Oh yeah, and he started playing something, oh, that's cool, what's that? It was never, you know, like we gotta do something that's this, or hard hitting, or bluesy, or whatever. Right. It was just, you know, whatever felt right to both of us, we went with.
So you both had a little bit of stuff worked out, and then you started playing with it.
I brought a few things to the table, he brought a few things to the table, which worked out. There's a couple of those songs on the record that are those, and then there's also a few that were just kind of born out of the thin air.
Yeah.
You know, where like one of us started something and the other jumped in, and we developed that.
Ivan is obviously of a very specific place, and when I think of you, I think of Baltimore, and I'm not from here originally, but one of the things I noticed when I first moved to Maryland was that Marylanders and people from Baltimore have a ton of pride in the place. And so when you think about Maryland and you think about Maryland pride, what does that bring to mind for you?
I think about deep roots, and I think about people that have laid down deep roots and have families that have laid down deep roots and are proud of that. And that's sort of the goal, is family. And you know, establishing a home. You know, you go to some other places where it's real career-driven and real ambitious, which is great. And
one of them's about 45 minutes down the highway.
Well, yeah, that's a different kind of, yeah. But you know, and that's all great. But I think what I love about Maryland and Baltimore is there's no race to run, and people are just themselves, and they establish their roots, and they have families, and they have families, and it's. And you can feel that. There's an identity and a soul and just a down-home feeling.
So you talk about roots, and Baltimore obviously has its own claims to roots music and its other traditions, despite being what most people think of as sort of like a mid-Atlantic city or a northern city. Can you talk about your roots music influences?
I'm hugely influenced by, hugely inspired by all of, the American roots styles, the folk, blues, bluegrass school. Bill Monroe, Doc Watson, and down to like Muddy Waters, Son House, Lightning Hopkins, Ola Belle Reed, who lived in Maryland. People don't know the heavy bluegrass lineage of Baltimore.
Right.
And, you know, back in the day, when all of the Appalachian folk were moving from West Virginia to work in the factories here, they brought a lot of that tradition, and Baltimore was a huge hotbed for that stuff. I can't say I experienced that,
Right.
But it's obviously in the consciousness of the city. You know, my grandfather owned a clothing store, and Bill Harrell and Don Reno worked there. And you know, there's definitely, in the Baltimore, D.C. area, there's this huge tradition of bluegrass, country, blues, guitar playing, Telecaster players, Danny Gatton, Link Ray, Roy Buchanan. This area was a hotbed more than people realized.
I wonder, because I didn't get to see you guys in the early days, like, did people get it?
I think people got it. The people that got it,
Yeah.
you know? And I think people just resonate with real things, real music, especially these days where there's so much processed stuff.
Right.
You know, I'm not trying to, rain on that, but, you know, when you hear something that's honest and real, you know it, and I think that's the factor. You know, whatever you want to call it, bluegrass, blues, folk, jazz, rock, rock and roll, anything. It's just, the real stuff. And that music in particular, there's no gimmicks. You can play it on the porch, it's going to sound the same as if you play it on a stage. So yeah.
So I mean, we're here at Union, and John and Adam basically started the Charm City Bluegrass Festival.
Just to give credit to the guys, there was a guy named Phil Chorney and Jordan August are the two founders of that festival. But Union hosted it.
Right.
For the
They
first
had
couple
it
years.
at the old
one.
space.
Yeah.
For the first 1 or 2 years.
I think it was 2 years. Yeah.
And then they've moved it. Now it's like
it's grown.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's like
2
a
nights
national
this year.
bluegrass festival.
Yeah.
It kind of like brings it home to the like close connections around here. I mean, John is one of my oldest best friends. We went to college together. We lived together. I remember sitting on his couch and him saying, "Man, I think I want to open a brewery. I got some ideas with some guys." And I was like, "Cool, go for it." And here we are. They've quickly entrenched themselves as, when you think of Baltimore, one of the brands that is starting to pop into mind. And, years from now, it'll be automatic, like Natty Bo. I'll be playing here with my band in April.
Oh, nice.
For our album release. So that'll be
That's
cool.
great.
Have never played this space here yet. So
Nice.
Yeah.
It's now Cris Jacobs Band on tour and a new record coming out in April.
We have another mutual friend who had told me a gig you were getting.
Now, why am I nervous right now? About that?
Don't be nervous.
I feel like
Don't be
I
nervous.
got caught doing something.
So I was driving up to work one morning, and I was listening to Tales from the Golden Road, and the guy calls in.
I know what you're gonna say.
This guy calls in, and he's talking, and he's saying, "My son is playing with Phil, and what's that tour called?"
We played at the Outlaw Music Festival.
In California.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he's talking and he's like super level-headed about it, and he never said your name.
I know. And the funny thing is, I don't want to blow him up, but he was so mortified that he didn't say my name because he called me.
Oh, really?
He called me and told me that he did this and that I was just on Tales from the Golden Road, and I was talking, but Mom says I didn't say your name. I thought I did. And then we listened and he didn't say it. And he was like apologizing. I'm like, that. I thought that was cooler.
Cool.
I thought it was cooler too.
This is like, because I was thinking to myself, that's really cool that like he called in.
He wasn't just trying for a cheap plug. He was genuinely, he wanted to tell that story because it meant a lot to him.
And he was like, I was just driving thinking, if that was my kid, I would be flipping my shit. And I'd be like, yeah, my son's Cris Jacobs. And he just played with Phil.
Yeah, well, he did that off the air because let me tell you, that was just like such a moment because, I grew up, my parents were huge Deadheads. My dad was specifically a Phil Lesh guy. Like, used to be like, you got to listen to the bass, listen to the Phil right here, And when I got that call to do that, man.
That must have been
How does that happen? Like, who calls?
I was mowing my lawn one day and got a text message from a California number that says, "Is this Chris?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Hey, we're putting together a Phil and Friends show in the Hollywood Bowl. Are you interested?" Yeah. And that was it.
Who else was on there?
Jackie Green,
Nice.
Jason Crosby played keyboards, and Nathan Graham, a DC area kid, friend of mine. It was really funny because we've played together here, like around here, and been on sessions together, and we played together at the Hollywood Bowl with Phil. So it was like, what are we doing?
That must have been awesome.
That's nuts.
Is that like where is that on High Points?
And that's all the way up. To have my dad there, he came out with me, and just to share that with him, and to be able
did he get to meet Phil?
Yep.
Phil was probably super cool.
He was super great to him, and to have that moment,
right?
You know, when like he raised me on the Dead, and like
That's
took me to
awesome.
my first Dead shows, and you know.
What year was that?
93.
Baltimore is having a moment both in up-and-coming music like yourself and the rise of craft beer and artisan stuff.
There's a lot of creative people in the city. There always has been. You know, you got John Waters, Frank Zappa's
Yeah.
from here, you
Yep.
know, and there's always been great artists in Baltimore. I think maybe, you know, now that everybody's connected, people are starting to finally figure it out.
Right.
And speaking of Baltimore entrepreneurs and
Native sons.
Yeah, native sons that are really pushing that creative envelope. My brother, fellow bridge founder Kenny Liner, is an avid climber. He's got a great organization called Believe in Music. It's a nonprofit that teaches music to underprivileged kids in Baltimore City. So I know he likes beer, and he's here a lot, so you should talk to him next time.
He's probably climbing.
He'll take you climbing.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
He'll take you climbing.
We'll do that.
We'll go over there after we've had a
I'll
few.
go in the kitty.
Yeah, you can't hang with him, I don't
Turn
think.
60 on
He's
I'm
hardcore.
gonna have to work on my upper body strength a
He's
little bit.
hardcore. Yeah.
So this is a beer show. What's your favorite union beer?
Before we do anything, we need a beer clean glass.
What's your favorite union beer?
I really like almost all of them.
Yeah.
I was heavy on the Black Wing for a
I'm
while.
a huge Black Wing guy.
Yeah, I love the Duck Pin if I'm in the mood for a nice IPA. What'd you give me here? This is like a little mixture.
That's
J. Moy
the
special?
J. Moy Special. That's
Right.
a blend of AM Gold, a version of AM Gold, which is a white vanilla latte, and half that, half Snow Pants. So it's
Delicious.
It's a beer cocktail of sorts that really.
Their beers are all
Yeah.
incredible. The beer kicks ass, and that's at the end of the
Yeah,
day
well,
what's really happening
this
here.
wouldn't be growing the way it was if it didn't.
It's really good.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Bartender.
If you're not on the road and you're not here at Union having a beer, what do you like to do?
Well, these days, I have a 2-year-old daughter.
All right.
So I'm home.
Yep.
You know, we just did potty training, so I was
All
chasing
right,
a little
yeah.
naked baby around the house.
Naked baby body training.
But you know, watching some cartoons and playing some games, reading some books. But
And you're previous to your 2-year-old.
yeah. Here's that. I was out on the town every night. Now play a little poker every now and again.
There you go.
Used to.
If
Play
you're
a lot
home and
more.
you're getting takeout in Baltimore, you're getting
That's another thing about this town people don't know. There's so many good restaurants. So many. I mean, there's the classics, and then there's like these new hipster places that all open up that are all great, and it depends. I mean, where we are, there's great Chinese food. Sunny Lee's is fantastic. Our house down in Remington, where there's all the different options. That's a fun place
That's
to
a
go.
cool place.
I love Grano in Hamden, some just old school Italian. And then there's the classics, Tio Pepe's and Sabatino's.
This is not the new record, but you should definitely get this record also. The new record, Cris Jacobs Band, comes out April 5th. Thank you to Union Collective for having us today. Always with me is the beer guy, Cris Jacobs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
A lot of
That's
fun
great,
having with
man.
you guys. Thank you.
Plus, he's a UMass guy. How can you go wrong?
UMass, baby.
That's right, baby.
Yeah.
Minute Man.
Yeah.